The old-timer glanced at him with ill-disguised contempt. "I have been sitting here since morning, quietly, with not a single fish, and the fool thinks he can catch fish with music blaring at 4 in the afternoon. No fool like a young fool." To his amazement, within 10 minutes the boy landed a huge trout. The old man dismissed it as a lucky break and continued fishing. 10 minutes later, the boy caught one more big trout. Now the old man could ignore it no longer. He stared at the boy, dumbfounded, and just then, to his utter disbelief, the boy landed one more huge trout. The old-timer cast his pride aside and walked slowly over to the boy. "What is the secret?" he asked. "I have been sitting here the whole day, and my basket is empty. You already have 3 huge trout. What's going on?" The boy said, "Roo-ra-ra-ra, roo-ra-rum." The old man put his hand to his ear and asked, "What?" The boy turned down the stereo and said, "Roo-ra-ra-ra, roo-ra-rum." The old man was perplexed. "I don't understand a word you're saying." The boy spat a blob of something into his hand and said, "You have to keep the worms warm. Unless you do the right things, right things will not happen to you. Principles and philosophies are only of social consequence. It is time to wake up to yourself as an existential being, a living being, rather than a psychological case. Then your destiny will be your own, 100% your own. This is not an idle promise, this is a guarantee." No boundary, no burden. Once it happened, an argument arose one evening between a husband and wife. The argument was over the burning question, who should close the front door today? Not a simple question, and not a laughing matter. These are very serious issues in domestic situations. Who should close the door today? Who should switch off the garden lights this evening? Who should take the dog for a walk? These are questions that can drive couples to divorce. The argument grew more and more heated. The wife decided, "Every day it is I who, in the end, accepts defeat. Today, I am not going to give in." The husband also grew equally determined. "She pushes me around all the time. I am not going to give in to this woman today, no matter what." It was one of those grand rows. Now, every home has its own system of resolving these arguments. In this family, when confronted by an impasse, both husband and wife would sit silently. The person who uttered the first word would have to go and do the chore. The two sat in stony silence. Minutes ticked into hours. Dinner was on the table. If the husband said he wanted to eat, he would have to close the door. If the wife proposed dinner, she would have to close the door. Midnight. They were still sitting. A few rogues passing by on the street. They saw the doors of the house open, lights on, no party, nothing. Everything was quiet. They wanted to see what was going on, so they looked into the sitting room. They saw 2 people sitting there, steadfastly silent. The rogues looked at the silent couple. They were a little surprised. They decided to take a chance. They helped themselves to a few valuables in the sitting room. The 2 people said nothing. The rogues grew amused. Emboldened, they sat at the dining table, served themselves dinner. The couple sat heroically silent. The rogues were hugely tickled. What the hell was happening here? They grew bolder still. One of them kissed the wife. Still the couple didn't utter a word. The one who spoke would have to close the door. The stakes were too high. Neither could risk it. Now the rogues got a bit spooked. They decided it was time to leave this strange household, but before they left, they wanted to leave their mark. They decided to shave off the husband's moustache. One of them approached him, razor in hand. Then the husband finally spoke. He said, "Okay, damn it, I'll close that door." Perhaps the scenarios are different, but are there not situations in your life that hinge on a similar question, who is responsible? Who is responsible? It's a big question. Let's put the question more precisely. Who is responsible for the way you are right now? Your genes, your father, your mother, your wife, your husband, your teacher, your boss, your mother-in-law, God, the government, all of the above? The condition is a pervasive one. Ask someone, "Why are you in this situation?" Pat comes the response, "You know, when I was a child, my parents..." The same old story with just a few variations. There is an ancient science of how to create misery, and one in which human beings need no encouragement whatsoever. There is almost no one who is not an expert. Passing the buck is what you do in 100 different ways every day. You have collectively refined the old blame game into a fine art. The quality of our lives is determined by our ability to respond to the varied, complex situations that we encounter. If the ability to respond with intelligence, competence, and sensitivity is compromised by a compulsive or reactive approach, we are enslaved by the situation. It means we have allowed the nature of our life experience to be determined by our circumstances, not by us. Being fully responsible is to be fully conscious. What you consider to be your body is what you have gathered through ingestion. What you consider to be your mind is what you have gathered through 5 senses. What is beyond that, which you did not gather, is who you are. Being alive is being conscious. Everybody is conscious to some degree, but when you touch the dimension beyond body and beyond mind, you have touched that which is the very source of consciousness. You realize then that the entire universe is conscious. You inhabit a living cosmos. The physical and psychological dimensions belong to the realm of polarities, pain and pleasure, love, hate, masculine, feminine, and so on. If you have one, the other is bound to follow. But when you move into the fundamental dimension of who you are beyond all polarities. You now become blissful by your own nature. You are the master of your own destiny. It is time to reclaim for ourselves the extraordinary transformative power of this single word, responsibility. Apply it to your life and watch the magic unfold. Let us settle what we mean by the word at the start. Responsibility is a much misunderstood term. It has been used so widely and indiscriminately that it has lost much of its inner voltage. Responsibility does not mean taking on the burdens of the world. It does not mean accepting blame for things you have done or not done. It does not mean living in a state of perpetual guilt. Responsibility simply means your ability to respond. If you see I am responsible, you will have the ability to respond. If you think I am not responsible, you will not have the ability to respond. It is as simple as that. All it requires is for you to realize that you are responsible for all that you are and all that you are not, all that may happen to you and all that may not happen to you. This is not a mind game. This is not a self-help strategy for easy living. This is not a philosophical theory. This is a reality.